It is an answer that people don't love because it makes you uncomfortable. I graduated high school and I went, I don't know what to do now. I've been spending all this time theoretically getting myself ready to play this game called life. And all I know how to do is play school really well. At some point that game ends and you've got to provide value to the world. And then the system's like, don't tell anybody that. This kid needs algebra. I'm like, this kid's a gang member whose parents have him selling drugs when he gets home. Algebra is not what he needs right now. Right? But we've done this for so long that nobody questions it anymore. The government takes you at 5 and starts telling you exactly what you need to do. Do you want an educated society? Well, of course I want an educated society. Well, then
you got to go to school.
And here we go. The government says, we're here to save you. Then we will make sure society is educated.
Common myth there is like, well, we turned out all right.
First of all, I always ask, did you? But it's still jumping at him, and he's literally throwing sidekicks, dude. And he's just throwing, and he's like, you don't get to do this. And he's just like going at it, right? And there's this dad thing in me where I'm like, I want to run over and I am going to kill this rooster right now. It is dying right now. I want my son to watch me just snap the life out of this.
I can see the enemy approaching the battleground. Hear the drums pound like a thunder sound loud. I gather up my crowd to prepare them for what's coming. We've been summoned.
What's going on? Welcome to Alpha Dad Consulting, a show where we focus on helping dads become better family leaders. I am your host, Vidal, and today we're going to be diving into a part of family leadership that gets viewed as often not being our responsibility as dads. And that responsibility is education. And maybe it's a culture thing, maybe it's a society thing that has convinced us of this. But to have this conversation today, I invited a very special guest. He is a lifelong educator and provocative thought leader on the topic of education and personal development, a 2-time featured TEDx speaker who has also spoken on hundreds of other stages around the U.S. He's the co-founder and leader of the Apogee Strong movement. He's the host of the popular Essential 11 podcast. And on top of all of that, he's a devoted family man and a trusted mentor and brother of mine who has more vowels in his last name than the word chimichanga. And I want to welcome back to the show, Matt Beaudreau. What's up, brother?
You worked chimichanga in so early.
Hey, I had to throw it in there somehow, right?
Early. Before you even got a chance to say a word, you'd worked it in. That's awesome. That's awesome, man. Always good to be with you, brother. I appreciate you. One of my favorite humans on the planet.
Likewise, man. I appreciate this. And I've been looking forward to this a lot, man. This is this is part 2. We had this dude, it's been like almost in May, it'll be about 2 years since you were on the show the first time, which is crazy.
No way.
Yeah, because it was May 23, right? So like when during Apogee year 1.
I have no idea when it was. I don't like time.
I remember because this would be episode 49
right
today.
On. Right on.
And then you came on, I think, on 29 or so.
Right
so
on.
yeah.
Right on, man. Good deal. Good for you. Proud of you on that. But
Thank you,
that's
man.
wild, man. That's just I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing. Like the way the time really like the way the time, you know what I mean? Like the way it works on that. We're coming up on at the time of you and me recording this right now, we're coming up on, I think next week is 3 years out here on the farm. And
Really?
that is that's a weird thing too, man. Like in one sense, it feels like we've lived here forever. And the other sense, it feels like we literally just got here. And to realize that it's 3 years is kind of nuts, man. So that doesn't surprise me that it's been a couple of years. It's wild.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. We're going through that same thing right here in Texas, right? Because we moved from California. You moved from California to North Carolina. We moved from California to Texas, and it has been. It's a little over 3 years now. We're going on 4th year this year, and it's like
so crazy, dude.
And it's we still have that feeling, right? Where it's like, did we move? Did we really move? Are we really here? And then we're pretty acclimated now, and we have friends and family and people around. So it's like it's weird.
It's so strange, man. I had one of the a buddy of mine from California who worked with me at one of my campuses out there. You know, he sends me a text the other day, and we're talking. I'm like, oh man, good to hear from you. You know, and it's. Yeah, this is great. And how's this and how's that? And I'm like, we just talked not too long ago. What's going on? He's like, dude, we haven't actually talked since you left. And I'm like, okay. And that's what brought it to my mind that we've been here 3 years was that. And I'm like, I guess we haven't. It still seems like a blink of an eye, but it's just, again, I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing. We're so head down. We're so focused. We're so just in this growth mode. And it's like, I don't know, man, it makes me feel old sometimes. Like, is like that my old man brain slowing down, or is this a good thing? Cause it's a product of just living and not being so past or future focused. It's just, I don't know, dude. I don't know.
Yeah, dude, I had a made me feel old moment last time. We were at a restaurant with the family, and the waiter, really nice guy, right, young guy, and then we start talking, right. He's just kind of like telling us, "Hey, man, can you leave me a review?" And this and that. He did a great job. I asked him, "Hey, man, what are you doing outside of this? I mean, I know you're trying to go up, and that's why you're getting reviews and this and that. But what are you doing outside of this?" He's like, "Oh, I'm working towards becoming a firefighter." He has all these ambitions, which was really cool. And I'm like, "How old are you?" He's like 19. He's like, yeah, I was born in 2005. I'm like, oh. I'm like, that's the year I graduated high school, bro. Like, So I just had that feeling. I'm like, I'm proud of you, man. That's cool, but you suck right now because you just made me feel old.
Gross, man. Gross. Yeah, totally. That's it. Dude, Heather and I started dating in 2005.
Oh, really? That's funny.
Yeah. So I was way past graduated. So yeah, that's wild. Yeah. Same thing. We had, we were out kickboxing the other day and this young guy who's become one of my partners there, at one of the classes, one of my sparring partners, and super good young guy. He's a stud. And, we were getting into his background a little bit, and he's like, "Yeah, well, I actually moved out here because I'm a videographer, and I got offered." He goes, "I entered a competition for a pretty well-known YouTube guy."
Okay.
And I sent him all this stuff, and he hired me. So I'm his main videographer for his stuff. And I'm like, "Oh, that's sweet." I'm like, "So you moved out here?" I'm like, "Who's the guy?" And he told me who the guy was, and I'm like, "Well, I know him, man. Like, we had breakfast over at his house. Like, I know him too, and he's actually one of Joel Salatin's proteges."
Oh, really? Okay.
Is who this guy is. Yeah. And so I'm like, I know him, dude. And so we start chatting and I'm like, "Dude, this is rad." And he's talking about his son. And I'm like, "This is awesome." And he's, I'm sitting there like, "Oh, cool, man." Like another buddy of mine we're the same age, like we're out here doing the same stuff and talking about kids. And I look down on his ankle, and he's got 1997 tattooed on his ankle. And I'm like, "Hey, man, real quick, is that when you were born?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "That's when I graduated high school. This sucks a little bit, like,
yeah,
we're not the same, but yeah, it's funny."
Yeah. Just having those generational gaps, man. And like all the slang terms, bro, that they're using nowadays too. It's just, I can't get with it. I can't get with it. They told me one yesterday at Ethan's martial arts class, which was Riz, I think. Like you have mad Riz, or you got when you, I guess it's the equivalent of what we used to say, like when you have game, right? When you can spit game and all that. They call it Riz now, which is
okay. Got it.
Yeah, I'm staying away from that one though.
Me too, dude. I'm still trying to bring back like the 80s stuff, like Fresh or something. You know what I mean? Like
that was fly, or that was dope.
Yeah, that's dope. Yeah.
I don't think we're gonna win that one, man.
No, I don't think so,
bro. So all right, man. So education.
Yeah.
Big common thing. School equals education. And this is what we've been convinced to believe. And you were convinced to believe this at some point as well throughout your journey. But, one of the things that we talk about a lot, man, within the Apogee, we quote a movie quite often, The Matrix, right? Morpheus handing, if you're familiar with the story, Morpheus handing the blue pill, the red pill, meaning that the blue pill, he stays in like the Matrix and this simulation and just kind of accepts the reality of what it is. And then the red pill allows him to escape it and actually see the real world for what it really is. So you had a similar moment throughout your journey. Can you talk about that, man? What caused you to sort of start looking and questioning whether school did equal actually education?
Yeah, dude, it's such a good question, and it's such an important question. And it's a question that, the answer, again, like this red pill, blue pill scenario, it is an answer that people don't love because it makes you uncomfortable. People will get on board with this concept and be like, "Yeah, that's right." And they're always on board with it. And I won't say always. A lot of people are very much on board with it until I find the one thing that they refuse to question for themselves. And then I no longer am excited about this red pill, blue pill thing. And I hate you, gray bearded man, for making me think about this, right? And whether that happens in school, and it usually happens under the guise of some sort of system. So schooling is the one that obviously I work in the majority of the time as far as this kind of conversation. So this is where I make the most upset humans, right? Is talking about this, but we can equally do this in any other big system. I can do this in medicine. We can do this in religion. We can do this we can poke the bear, any one of these bears, and get to a point where it makes you uncomfortable and you're forced with the decision. I either have to dive into this and start to question some of my strongly held beliefs here, or I've got to ignore the fact that there are questions here that I am refusing to answer. And that to me is where education actually starts. And that's the problem. When does curiosity just get shut off? Because the answers are what matters. And so when you're, to bring it back full circle, I've always kind of gotten it, but I was also never brave enough to pull the string. I got it as a kid. That I'm playing a game here at school. I'm not trying. I'm not learning. And I'm still getting all of the things that everybody says, good little boy. I'm still the student that, the teachers like. I'm still the young person that, the parents are like, I'm proud of my boy. He gets straight A's. It goes up on the fridge. If we had the straight A bumper sticker, like I would put it on there. Like I was always that kid, but I always knew it was BS. It didn't really matter until I was forced to come to terms with it somehow. For me, the first time really coming to terms with it was I graduated high school and there was a little bit of a panic of, I don't know what to do now. Right? I know how to play school. So I college okay, cool. Sounds good. But now there's this extra layer of I've got to pay for things. I don't really know how to make money or manage that. And how am I going to do that while still going and getting my good little boy and getting the straight A's? So there was panic there. So that's when I started to question a little bit. And then I figured out that particular game of, okay, here are all the jobs I'm going to do so that I can make the money, so that I can still keep playing the game that I at least know I'm good at and I can get my A's. But then what happens again? I graduate again. Right. And I can go, okay. So, and a lot of people face this. And I say this, not just, I guess it's anecdotally, but the reality is I talk to so many flipping people who face this exact same thing where they're like, okay, then I graduated high school or I graduated college. And I'm like, now what? So I'm just going to go back and maybe I'll get my master's. Maybe I'll get my doctorate. Maybe I'll go back to teach this, because there's so many professors that were just scared to ever step outside of that.
Wow. Yeah.
Right? That they just stay there. And that's a conversation I've had with so many. So it was all these little moments of panic where it's like, well, shoot, I've been spending all this time theoretically getting myself ready to play this game called life, or being an adult, or being successful, or shoot, what is it supposed to be? And all I know how to do is play school really well. At some point that game ends and you've got to provide value to the world. You've got to have something else to bring. So every new stage was a little bit of like what do I do? Every single one of those stages. And so that was kind of the underlying, like, irking me forever. And so it was always thankfully met with at least, okay, I'm going to just work really hard at whatever this next thing is, as ridiculous as this is, right? I'm going to work hard at these jobs. I'm going to work hard, which I'm thankful that I had the work ethic, because those opened up opportunities for me, even though I had no idea what the hell I was doing. And then there was a comfort that really came back into my mind where I'm like, okay, well, I know I was really good at that game of school. I'm learning now that I enjoy talking to people. I enjoy, kind of the instruction side and the mentorship side, and okay, maybe that's it. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's why I'm so comfortable, because I'm supposed to go back there. So I go back there with a little bit of a new, like, okay, guys, I've seen it. I've seen it over here. You actually have to have these other skills. I've seen it over here. It doesn't really matter if you got straight A's, because I saw a lot of people with straight A's who are freaking miserable and can't do it. I saw them at the highest level of the quote unquote elite school that I worked at. And these guys were miserable. Like I saw, I'm going to come back with the Holy Grail and be ready to rock and roll. And then the system's like, don't tell anybody that. Don't tell anybody that. This kid needs algebra. I'm like, this kid's a gang member whose parents have him selling drugs when he gets home. Algebra is not what he needs right now. No, that's what he needs because that's how we get paid, because that's what his test is on, because that's when it really all started to unravel. And I don't pretend like that went like, okay, here we go. And 6 months later, I'm doing something else. That's what kicked off years of, right? Working in some tough areas in California. That's what kicked off years of like, okay, how do I actually serve these people in this system? Multiple years of that going, okay, there's some system. Yes, there's not just system issues. There's great teachers. There's great parents. There's also bad teachers. There's also bad parents. But the system itself is not going to change because I want it to. Yeah. It's not going to. And I actually have everything stacked against me so that I can't. Even on my own site, I can't fully do what I want to do for these people. Mm. So I guess I'll go. So it was system to system to system where finally I just went, I'm tired of putting it in other people's hands. I got to figure something out. So that's many, many years condensed into a few minutes, but it wasn't just the one thing. It was the series of things and being uncomfortable, not asking more questions.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's it, man. Like we get to that point where we're confronted with the truth that we're literally seeing, right? Like it's right in front of us, but we're so used to the comfort of living in the lie, right? Or living in this simulation, for lack of a better word, and it feels that way because that's how, man, dude, that's how it was when I was working at Apple, right? This was before we had kids, and I'm conducting these like field trips for kids coming into the store, right? And we're doing videos and doing all like teaching them how to use the iPads and all that stuff, right? And I remember very distinctly because I was in charge of that event. And I would work with a lot of neighboring schools in the community. And dude, when they would come in, it would be chaos. Like it'd be so hard to like, man, hey dude, like over here, man, stop touching that phone. You're like all over the place. And it's like 30 kids, one teacher, the teacher just kind of like handed the kids off to us. It's like, all right, well, go ahead, do what you're going to do with them for the next hour and a half. And then, all right, cool. Right. Yeah. So I get that experience and I'm like, man, like, this is weird. This is weird. I don't remember school being like this. This is weird. Then I get a group of homeschool co-op parents. Okay. Yeah. It's my first exposure to this. And they come in and say, hey, I saw that you guys are doing this with the kids. Like, do you guys have these types of programs for homeschool co-op? And I'm like, what's a co-op? It's like, oh, well, we were all homeschool parents, but we get together once a week to kind of do projects together and do things together. Would it be okay if we got a good group together? Would you guys be able to facilitate, one of these events for us? I was like, yeah, sure. Let's do it. I'm gonna give you my email. Let's go. So I do it. They come in, man. I'll never forget this. Every single one of the kids that came in, a couple girls, a few boys, they all looked at me. They came up to me and they shook my hand. Hey, how you doing, Mr. G? Shook my hand, looked me straight in the eye. They calmly sat down and they were like, hey, so what kind of project are we doing today? They asked me first before I even got to it. Completely calm demeanor. It almost seemed like they were used to talking to adults all the time. Like they just had this, and I'm like, wow, this feels different to me. And that feeling that I got from that and seeing that exposure, seeing the dichotomy between those two things is what then me and Cio, right, my wife, we start talking like, hey, what if we start going this homeschool path for our kids, man? Because I'm seeing the effects of some of the school stuff and like, we think it should go one way, right? We've been taught that it should go one way, but I'm seeing homeschool as a different alternative. Like, so that led us into, I'm going to bring this up because this right here, dumbing us down.
One of the
John
best.
Taylor Gatto, man. Dude, so it became this kind of journey of us, discovering these things and figuring out, well, what's a better alternative for education for our kids? Because this is our responsibility, right? For our kids. And I think that's where it becomes hard. You were talking about how it becomes hard for certain parents because you come to the point where you see this, you step out of it, you start creating your own education for your own kids, right? By starting schools and doing this thing. And then you start telling people about it because you're like, hey, I discovered this amazing truth that I want to go out and share with the world. And you talked specifically about the hesitation that some people have. So what have you seen to be kind of like the mover, man, the thing that gets people over that line versus the people that don't?
That is always the question for me. And I love that question that you just asked, because that's the question for me, is what is going to get this person over the line? And over the line, meaning it's not the evidence that shows them the logical progression. That's usually not it. That comes pretty dang quick for most people. Most people are not that dumb. Yeah. Most people really aren't. Like most people, and social media can convince you otherwise. Most people actually are relatively intelligent. I do believe that. And they can follow the logical progression. It is not the logic that gets them over the line. It's the emotion, right? Because the underlying fear, and we'll use all of these other things to try to distract us from asking the question that we really want to ask. We do this as people anyways, in any of these arenas where we've got this emotional connection to, right? And we'll start to employ these logical fallacies where it's like, if I say that I love homeschool, I'm also saying I have disdain for anybody in public school. No, you're not. If I'm saying that I love this, it means I have a disdain or a disagreement with this. No, it doesn't. It does not. That's a false equivalence. It doesn't work that way. We trick ourselves into that so that we don't have to ask ourselves the real question. And the question is always, what are you afraid of most? In this topic, what are you afraid of most? What is the fear here? And I'm going to use a quick example that's not in schooling, before I answer this question on the school side of what gets people to move outside of this. I don't care where anybody falls on this. Please hear this. I don't care what your decision is, as long as it's actually a decision, because we don't do a good job of that too. We do something by default and call it our decision. A decision means you've actually thought through all sides and you are consciously making a choice. I don't care if somebody disagrees with me ever, if they've done that, right? I don't care if they've done that. Most people just don't do that in certain realms. So when it comes to the topic of vaccinations, which I know is a tough topic, I don't care where you go with this as your family. I just want you to make an informed choice. For my family, we have chosen not to, but we did a little bit, and then we fell into that, seeing a vaccine injury a little bit for our oldest. And so this took us down this whole big multi-year, huge path. Okay. So our son, he's born. We're like, all right, man, we're ready to rock and roll. If we went back now, I'd probably do a home birth. I mean, and that's where we would do a home birth. Like, that's kind of where we landed on it now. But we had a midwife and we were in a hospital. Loudon comes out, everything's rocking and rolling, all good. And we're like, man, we're about ready to get out of here. And they're like, okay, we have to shoot him with the, we got to give him the Hep B, and we're like, nah, man, we're good. We're not going to do that. And they're like, okay, your child will die tonight. You know what I mean? Like, they go straight to the fear.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Right. It's straight to the emotion of it all. Right. It's like, he's going to die. He's going to do, like, you're setting him up for this. You're setting him. It's straight to the fear tactics, because it's the emotion that they will bank on. It's not, let us show you all of the research on both sides so that we can have and to be fair, they don't have time on that either. Like, I get it, but it's straight to the fear.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's what they're banking on, is that you're going to be afraid enough to fall in line. School is the same thing. The underlying question for these parents is, am I going to mess up my kid? They don't even necessarily define what that is. So my question for all these parents is always, what is the thing you think you're going to mess up? That's always it. What is what is the worry? What is the thing you think you are going to mess up? And are you afraid of it? The thing that you're afraid of most, are you afraid of it for your kid? Are you afraid of it for you?
Yeah.
Right? Are you afraid of it because your parents are going to be pissed that you are homeschooling your kid? Are you afraid of it because your neighbor is not going to agree with your decision and you can't handle the social pressure of other people? Are you afraid of it for yourself because you understand that there is responsibility there and it means you're going to have to grow too?
Yeah.
And so that in of itself is scary because you're going to have to admit your own inadequacies and you're going to have to actually do the thing that you say you want to do, which is grow and get better, but you know you don't really want to do it. Are you afraid of that? Are you afraid that you legitimately cannot provide really good opportunities for your kids and you're somehow going to mess them up and they're not going to be able to function in society? All of those are valid concerns. That's fine. Let's address those. What is the thing you're most afraid of? That's always the starting point to actually getting a parent over the hump. It's not exactly the same answer for every single one, but it's getting them to really be honest and examine, okay, here is the thing I am afraid of most.
Yeah.
And then we can start to unpack, is that a real fear that needs to be there or not? 9 times out of 10 and it's not.
Dude, that's so good. Cause that, and what I'm hearing you say is that the people that can wrestle with that question,
Yes.
right, and actually look at the evidence and try to weigh out the options and weigh out and make a decision, an informed decision from wrestling with that question, those are usually the ones that will step through, right? And
Bingo.
and you know, the other thing, the underlying thing that I'm hearing you say too is going back to like the in the hospital with Loudon, right? The vaccine example where they get emotional and they get frustrated when you
Yes.
deny it, right? It's this trained behavior, man, of like adhering to this authority, right? And
Correct.
and going back full circle to school, that's
Yeah.
the trained behavior that we've been, you know,
Correct.
that's been kind of indoctrinated like in us, right? Or that's what leads us to get to that trained behavior as adults, I believe.
It's
Yeah.
a huge part of that is that you are trained for that's the biggest habit that you learn is that you have a specific place in society.
Yeah.
And you are learning your place and you are going to be in this specific class of a person for the rest of your life. And there's always going to be an authority to confirm that you are a part of that class. Teachers, again, there are a million amazing humans out there who do a really, really good job within the system. And I'm a huge fan and I'm a huge supporter of any of those good people. But one of the biggest things, if not the biggest thing, depending on where you are, that you go through in terms of training is quote unquote classroom management.
Yeah.
What does that mean? It is behavioral management of a bunch of humans because you're in this system where, like you said, you got 30 of these kids and you go out on a field trip and they want to go all over the place. You're not worried when you're in there as the teacher about the education that is taking place at the Apple store.
Yeah.
You're worried about managing behavior. And by the way, 9 times out of 10, your day on that school campus is about managing behavior and ensuring compliance enough to get them to give the answers back. Not this conversation that we're having over here about make a decision, wrestle with the next question. Make a decision, wrestle with the next question. That's growth. That's the growth cycle that everybody should be in, and it's uncomfortable all the time. You're making a decision. Notice I didn't say you're making the right decision and you're getting the right answer. Yeah. You don't know yet, but you make a decision, you get an outcome, you wrestle with the next question. It's actually the scientific method that they theoretically teach you in school. You just never get to actually implement, right? That's how it works. But in school, it is no, get them to this answer, train the behaviors, get them to this answer, get your golden star for doing that as a teacher. And then here comes the next one, train the behaviors, manage compliance. Those are the habits that our kids pick up.
Yeah.
It's that. They're not allowed to. That co-op, they come in, they didn't have to worry about what's going to be on the test later.
No.
I don't have to play this game of like, okay, I got to listen to what he says because they're going to ask a multiple choice question around what Mr. G said here. And I got to make sure to bubble the right thing in so that all the adults say good boy. Yeah. All right, I'm going to play that game. No, They're there to actually experience. It's life. They're there to make a decision, to wrestle with something and go, okay, cool. I'm going to pull what I want out of that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Not the same.
No, it's
You
not.
know?
It's not the same, man. It's the growth through the questioning, the critical thinking that you're talking about. Like that's the key, man.
It is.
And with respect to like what we're taught in school, like the managing behavior, getting at raising your hand to ask a question, raising your hand to go to the bathroom, and they can deny you.
Yeah.
Like they can say, no, you can't go right now. Even
That's
though
right.
like, yo, I'm about to pee on my pants, man. Like, you know what I mean? Like, no, but you can't, you need a hall pass to go there. Like there's,
You are not the person that gets to make the decisions for your life.
Yep.
Figure it out now.
Yep. Dude.
Figure it out now. Right.
Yeah.
And that is the thing. And so we take that so much further than it ever needs to go. It's, we don't even let ourselves question our own thoughts or perspectives on something. And that's where education is a different thing. And that's why education matters for everybody. It's because we get to choose, we went through, we get, we have multiple calls every week, and we got multiple coaches within, and we had a, call this last week. And we were taking a look at what we use as that Spark program, that the Spark concept. And even that for me, like I was taking a look at a situation that I'm dealing with right now, that even as that person who always tries to look at the other side, I got one situation right now and I'm like, okay, that one's kind of irking me and kind of annoying me. But then I was like, why haven't I done this? Why haven't I gone in and done this Spark tool, which is basically questioning, shifting the perspective, and then choosing what perspective I want. And as I went through and did it, nothing in the circumstances changed.
Yeah.
But I was able to just reframe it almost in an opposite fashion that I've been looking at it and going, can I actually prove that to be true? And I went, shoot, I may actually be able to prove the opposite perspective of how I've been looking at this. I'm not changing the objective facts of it, but I'm changing my perspective and I'm telling a different story. And then I can actually go in and prove that story. Shoot, if I can prove that story, then I actually can make a choice now. Mm-hmm. Because I can prove the other perspective that I had too a little bit. But now I got a choice. Which perspective do I want to own? What's going to serve me more now moving forward in this scenario? Because I can prove both sides a little bit. So shoot, I'm going to go on this one over here that actually gives me a better perspective. It actually takes a little bit of the stress off, and it actually starts opening up the creativity again of how do I make a better decision around this and get to the next thing? Like, it's that. And it's so much more difficult than people realize. I mean, it's literally the mental jujitsu of it all, right? Physical exercise, doesn't matter if you're in good shape. You can get yourself to where it's like, oh, I'm tired. We should be doing the same thing with our brain. I'm tired because I'm thinking through this so much. By the end of the day, I am a monkey. I can't articulate almost anything. And I take that as a good sign because I've just poured so much thought into things and changing the perspective, right? Like we should be doing that. And schooling is never that. It is comply. Don't worry about the thinking of it all. Comply, regurgitate. And so we just train that thinking out of us.
One of the things you just released, not just released, but a little while ago, I saw you release a reel with Dr. Jordan Peterson. He was talking about how he did some research on the origins of school, right? Yep. And he talked about how it was derived from this Prussian model. Can you speak to that? How did we get here, man? How did we get here?
Yeah. When people hear this and they're like, it came from Russia, and it's like, no, Prussia, like Germany. And so the genesis of what Dr. Peterson was speaking about, as the story goes, and again, you held up John Taylor Gatto earlier. I highly recommend anybody listening reads Dumbing Us Down, but then that's my intro. That's my gateway drug to the rest of his stuff is Dumbing Us Down, and then go read, Secret History and of the underground history of American education and weapons of mass instruction, and go read those because he does a far better job than I do on this. But the genesis, as the story goes, is it really was kind of a starting on the battlefield sort of thing. Prussians are battling Napoleon, and they've got some people, some soldiers that are essentially saying, "Hey, we kind of are questioning the authority here. We're not really sure we're doing the right thing," and whether that means strategy or just overall, like kind of the morals of it all. Like we're kind of questioning things, and we're starting to kind of push back. And there was this underlying understanding that the soldiers were not just falling in line. And so, to prevent this from happening again, we need to make sure we are training our young people to never question the authority here in our government. Never question what is going on. All of our young men are going to go in the military. We do not want them questioning things. We want them capable to follow orders. We want them to have a skill set that at least they can follow those orders and get something done. But questioning authority is out. And so they start to develop a human behavior, a human management system that starts early, where you start training behaviors. Fast forward, that's the foundation. That's the basis of school, is a behavioral management system. Yes, you sprinkle in some things so that there is a relative understanding of how to do certain things, but you're not taking into account human development. You're not taking into account any advancements that come externally. You're not taking those things into account. You are just taking a look, this is a system of human behavior management. We're going to start around 4 or 5. If we can start earlier, let's do it. And we're going to get compliance, and we're going to shove the specific skills that we want early and often and get compliance around that. If we can do that to somebody for 12 years, we've pretty much got them locked up for the rest of their life. Like, those foundational years are pretty much locked up. That's where it came from. That's what Dr. Peterson is talking about. It has nothing to do with human development.
Yeah, and it's the formative years, right? Like the formative years, man. Like the foundational years that we have. And the reason why I wanted you to kind of speak to that is because it's something that I want you guys to know is that it started gradually, right? I remember, I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, Horace Mann was somebody that was instrumental in that. And it was like, hey, let's do 2 hours here, maybe once a week, and then little by little, it started gradually becoming this thing. Like, okay, now it's 3 hours, now it's 4 hours. And initially, a lot of people had real hesitation to it, man.
A lot of hesitation. A lot of pushback. And that's always been the fear, was that it was going to become this slippery slope of more and more and more. Fast forward to today, the government controls the vast majority of it. Any other industry, and you'd call it a monopoly, and you'd be like, what is going on? Like, why does the government control 90% of this thing? The government owns 90% of the grocery stores and tells you what you can eat and what you can't eat. People would be like, what? The government controls 90% of any sort of healthcare options, and they're going to make it really hard for you to go anywhere else. And by the way, everybody starts taking the same medication at 5 years old, whether you think you need it or not. The government says you're going to start taking that medication, otherwise something's going to go wrong. People would be like, whoa, 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 whoa. Right? But we've done this for so long that nobody questions it anymore. The government takes you at 5 and starts telling you exactly what you need to do. And it's the same for everybody across the board. And we don't question it anymore because it has been slowly, dripped in. Let's add an extra hour here. And by the way, it's always for your own good, right? It's always for the good of society, because of course you need an you say the same things, but you're it's the same vocabulary, different definition, right? Do you want an educated society? Well, of course I want an educated society. Well, then
you got to go to school. And
here we go. Exactly. The government says, we are here to save you. Then we will make sure society is educated, and we'll spend extra money on this, and we see how that's working out. And the ultimate goal now is literally it's cradle to grave. The government wants to get to where it's by 2 years old. Like, you've got to get out there to a pre-kindergarten program that is government run and go and it's an experiment that's gone horribly wrong. that takes us back to the fear that everybody has now, because we all grew up going to school. Our parents grew up going to school. At this point, our grandparents grew up going to government schools, and more control gets exhibited over it. And we just don't question it. We fear doing anything different.
And
it's a great plan.
And the common myth there is like, well, we turned out all right. Right.
God bless America.
We turned out all right. It's like, well,
God bless America. First of all, I always ask, did you? Did we? Did we?
Yeah,
Did we turn out okay? Do we have a real articulate society that's really good at thinking critically? They're all healthy. We've got a bunch of great relationships. Everybody is pursuing a path. Everybody loves, what they do for work, the family relationship, the marriages are thriving. Kids are thriving. We don't have, so we all turned out okay? Did we? We all get along well. We can have good conversations where we're okay with disagreeing with somebody and having an actual, dialogue. Or we can point to all the cases that we're not necessarily okay. And then it's also an assumption that the world is the same and that schools are the same. Neither of those are true either. Schools are not the same, even when, you and I were in it 30 years ago or 20 years ago, right? School's not exactly the same. And the world is sure as hell not the same. The distractions for our kids are not the same. The opportunities for our kids are not that. I don't want to paint it like it's all just a bad thing. Like, the opportunities aren't the same. There's more opportunities for them now too. None of that's the same, but don't take that into account. Just, this is what we always knew, so this is what we always do.
Yeah.
Recipe for disaster.
Yeah, man. Your inherent fear of failure. I always go back to that, right?
100%.
Just, dude, everybody, right? Everybody you talk to, they have this fear of failure. And it's like, that's how we learn, man. But, we learn from making mistakes. You go to the shooting range, take your first shot, you might miss. You might not hit the target, but guess what? You take a few more shots and you start adjusting. All of a sudden, you're getting closer to that target. You had to fail quite a few times to get back on target.
That's right.
Right. So
that's right. Yeah, that's 100%. And then it gets reinforced, man, through, it gets reinforced even harder by your own people who really do actually love you and want to support you too, right? You're at that shooting range and you're helping like, you start to get a little bit better at it, and you're like, all right, I'm going to bring some people along with me, and I'm going to show them how to shoot. Not that I'm saying I'm the perfect shot. I'm just saying I'm a little further along than you are as far as shooting. Yeah. Here you go. And people are like, all right, cool. And then they see you mess something up and they're like, oh, okay, man, I think you're messing this up. And now all of a sudden they're the expert because they want to help you, but now they're the expert, and then they're wanting to make sure that you, like, failure is no longer an option for you. It's people in your own circle that start telling you. Growing a business is the same way. Growing a family is the same way. You got people that do love and care for you at some point, where they're like, oh, I would have made a different decision here. And therefore they start feeding your doubts too. Or they're like, I would have done it differently, and I don't think you're doing it right. And let me tell you that. And so all of a sudden you're just like, you feel like there's no support, anywhere. But again, all of that only feels that way if you're not used to listening to your own voice and trusting that you're going to wrestle, you're going to make decisions, you're going to make some of the wrong ones, and that you'll pivot and you'll make a better one afterwards. Until you learn to trust that, other people's voices outside always end up irking you a little bit. And that was a long time to learn that and get over that hump.
Yeah, man. Yeah. And I think that's the thing, right? If we would have gotten, I believe, like a different upbringing, this kind of educational freedom, right? And like, or how education leads to this freedom and sovereignty that we talk a lot about, the critical thinking and all that, getting that early on, we'd be on very different paths, I think, or further ahead, than we would have otherwise been. So
very much so.
Yeah, man.
Yep.
So dude, let's take back the word education, man. And I know this is the mission that you're on, is taking that word back, and how it does lead to the sovereignty and freedom you're talking about. So how has that become kind of this mission for you? How do you define education? Because you usually say, like, I'm not a teacher, I'm an educator. And I love that when you say that, but what do you mean when you say that?
Yeah, I mean, I have fallen into believing, for the most part, and when I say for the most part, I mean, this is where I believe the evidence has led me. I'm open to changing my mind later if evidence points to the contrary. That's the mindset that I think needs to be there for everything. Like, look, as far as I'm concerned, this is where I stand on this. Here's all my evidence. If you can convince me otherwise, great. I'll also try to convince myself otherwise, which either makes me start to question or it just solidifies my stance. I've got a pretty solid stance that what Socrates says is true. Of I can't teach a man anything. I can only get him to think. Right? Like that's it. That's my goal. Is I need to get people to think about things a little more deeply, try to take a different perspective, and help them do the same thing. Either make them question what it is they think they know, or it helps them solidify what it is they know. But it's up to them ultimately to do that or not. I can only try to inspire them to do it, to try to motivate them to do it, to set up a scenario where it happens. I use the gardening example all the time where you just set up the soil, you set up the sun, you set up the water, you do it, you set up the neighboring plants, you do it to the best of your ability. I'm not the one actually growing the tree. That's up to the tree. The tree has got to do the growing. I can't be arrogant enough to believe I'm the one that caused the tree to grow. No, man, God put that in place and that's it. I was just responsible for making the environment as good as possible so that it could grow. Right. And so as an educator, I believe that's my role. It's the same thing. It's the environment. As uncomfortable as it might be for the tree or for the person or for the family, my job is not their growth. My job is the best possible environment so that growth is possible. At the end, that last bit, it's on them. It always is. Right. And so that's the way I look at it. So from an education standpoint, educare is to draw out. My goal is to try to draw out the best in people. And I really take a look at it from two perspectives. One, what is the thing we think everybody needs to, we as a collective, what are the things everybody needs to be educated on? And I just mean they need to grow in. And then what are the things that person wants to grow in? They want to. Right? It's those two things. I don't try to overcomplicate it more than that. So there's very few of these what I call the meta skills that everybody needs of all time. The reality is you're going to have a relationship with another human being, whether that's a spouse, whether that's a friend, whether that's a coworker, whether that's a child, doesn't matter. You're going to have a relationship. So I believe it is a meta skill for all humans to understand how to have a decent relationship, how to communicate with another human, how to be okay with how they communicate with you, how to be able to work through problems, how to be able to, communication matters. How do you articulate your point of view? How do you learn to listen to somebody and get theirs? How do you weigh that evidence? There's all the little intricacies of having a good relationship with somebody, and those intricacies change depending on the nature of the relationship. That to me is a meta skill. There are very few meta skills. I really believe that. Physical health, you're always in your body. You're always in your body. And so you are designed to be a healthy individual. Your physical health matters. I don't mean, come on, bro, get jacked. Like I get it. And there's a part of me that agrees with part of that 100%. Like that's great. But the point is health. And I always use this example too. Am I still in decent shape for a 45? I'm a 45-year-old man. Yes. Do I still have a six pack? I do. I'm glad about that. That's cool. That's awesome. Good for me. It's more important to me that I don't even remember the last time I had a cold, and I can work every single day and I feel good and my brain works and I'm not sick. I've got energy to do all these things. That to me is more important. Physical health. I'm in my body. I want to be able to have that go as far as it can go for as long as it can go. Those are the meta skills. But then what's important to me individually too, right? You can't say sales and marketing is important for everybody. Well, it's important for part of my mission though, and what I do, right? Like that matters. So I also need to be able to dive into that. So it's the meta skills and then the me skills. And education should put you in a scenario where you are growing in both of those. Yeah. That's it. If you're helping to educate another, you are simply trying to help create an environment where all of those things can grow. The meta skills that everybody needs, how do I create the environment so they get that? And the specific things that they are wanting, how do I, to the best of my ability, help them get there too? And sometimes helping them get there, and this is where parents get it mixed up, is they're like, well, I don't know how to do this. Okay, cool. That's okay. So do you want to learn along with, or do you want to figure out somebody that's so much further ahead because you're actually not that, and you can make that happen. That's great. Both those things are okay. That's where you employ other coaches. Morgan rides horses. I don't know how to ride a horse well. So I could either learn with her or provide opportunities where she can work with somebody who's way further ahead than I'll ever be. And that can work. I don't know how to do gymnastics. I don't know. So we have coaches that work with Brielle on how to do gymnastics. I know how to fight a little bit. So yes, I teach some stuff to Loudon. Also, we employ coaches to go work. Like, it's the same thing. Same thing. So I don't want parents to get caught up. What can you do? What can you do together? And then what can you do to provide somebody that can do what you can't do?
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, man. Dude, when you break it down like that, it's so simple, right?
It's simple.
It's so simple. And it's that you talked about perspectives. It's like shifting that perspective of saying like, yeah, well, how can I make this possible regardless? Right. And dude, yeah, it's
bingo. That's it. And by the way, that's how everything works, dude. Yeah. We've got a mutual friend of ours, and I won't say his name on here because I haven't asked permission to say this, but it's a mutual friend of ours who is working through, and I don't like to use the word struggle because again, there's a very clear definition of what struggle is, and it's violently working to break free of these chains. So I won't say he's struggling. I'll say he is not being successful currently on something that's going on, for his business. And so the default is, what is the common thing that everybody says to do, right? Okay, I'm not making money yet. It's a business plan. I need a business plan. That's what I need. And so he's right now being told by a lot of other people that we also know, like, hey, you know what it is? It's a business plan that you need. So we got to get this really intricate, multifaceted, rigorous business plan. And great. If that's something that inspires him and motivates, then great. And then I want him to do that. From my perspective, that is adding so much complication where complication is not needed. You need to be in front of more people, period. That's it. You just need to have more. Let's take a look at any sort of expenditures that don't need to be there, which I don't think there's actually many. I think your problem is traffic. You just need more people in front of you. And then you need to make sure that you're showing up and being the person that will convert that traffic. Because I also know you're saying you're miserable on certain things right now, or that other people on your team are miserable. So you're definitely exuding that. So that's going to lower your conversion rate. We don't need a business plan yet. We need you to just show up optimistic, look at the one thing that is actually going to change things, and just go do it now to the best of your ability, and then adjust. Yeah. Or spend the next 6 months writing out this perfect business plan while everything else goes to hell. Yeah. Don't overcomplicate it.
No, man. We just had you're going to talk to him soon, Harrison Schenk from Save Your Sons. Sure. He was on here, man. And one of the things we're talking about entrepreneurship, because that's his kind of specialty. And we were talking about how people overcomplicate starting a business and all that, like how they exactly what you described, like you got to do this business plan, you got to do this, you got to go get this fancy website, you got to do all this stuff. And he's just simple, dude, just go tell people what you have. Like, go ask people what are their problems, find out what it is that they need help with. And if you can solve it, help them solve it, and then charge them something for it, and just start there. Like just start there. You know what I mean?
Just start there. The rest of the systems around it will present themselves at some point where you've got to implement.
Yeah.
We go backwards and we want to implement all of these systems for scalability and all of this kind of stuff. Before we ever need it, because it makes us feel good that we are doing something. Yeah. Even though it's not the thing that is going to move. It is the thing that is priority. It's a 1 or 2 out of 10, when really just getting in front of more people and having conversations at the very beginning is your 9 and 10.
Yeah.
It's really, that's really it. You can backfill and figure out the systems later. Like, none of it's easy, but it's very, very simple. We focus on the wrong stuff
all the time, man. Dude, so switching gears a little bit with, so most dads, right? We want to raise strong, confident, and capable kids. Mm-hmm. What are some of the biggest mistakes you see dads making in their approach to doing that? Right. Because we have, like we were talking about being trained behavior from school, this authoritarian kind of drill sergeant mode that us dads can kind of get into to manage the behavior we want out of our kids, right? Like it kind of
Yep.
plays into that. So
Yep.
what are some of the mistakes you see, and how can we change that up, man, and be more effective there?
Yeah, great question. So I'm going to use the words that you used to. So you said strong, confident, capable, and I would argue that that's a pretty solid deal, man. In my experience working with families, when you ask, well, what do you actually want for your child, right? And so that's part of unpacking the fear of like, what are you afraid of?
Mm.
Okay, and then what do you actually want? Because as soon as you get them to say, what do you actually want? I can tell you, in 2 decades in education and working with families all over the world, when I say, what do you actually want? I've never had somebody respond, I really just want somebody who is good at algebra. Nobody's ever responded with that.
Yeah.
So then it's cool because then I can compare it to, but your fear is
That he's not going to learn algebra.
he's not going to learn algebra, right? This irrational fear that ultimately isn't the thing you want anyways. Isn't that interesting? What do we do with that? Right. And that's usually when they're either like, oh, or they're like, I hate you. And it's like, cool, man, sounds good. I'll take it if that's what you need. Right. So I love that you use that because that's generally what people are wanting are those things like strong, confident, capable. Yeah. Right. It's that. So there's I don't know that this is almost like a chicken and egg sort of deal. I don't know that there is one that needs to come before the other in this. Mm. So this is where I start to lean into, I think this is a yes and, right? So there's a couple of things here. And again, not overcomplicating it. One, parents, are you strong, confident, and capable? It starts there. Because wanting them to be strong, confident, and capable, but you not being willing to be strong, confident, and capable is so arrogant. It's so arrogant, dude, that you won't prioritize doing that for yourself, but you say that's what they should be and what you want for them. You're lying, you're being a hypocrite, you're being I don't know, there's a million different ways to do it, but if you're not going to prioritize what you say you want and you're not going to prioritize it for yourself, kind of a jerk. So are you strong, confident, and capable? And then here's where the chicken and egg thing comes in. How do you define that for yourself? This is where I think the people can use the most kind of practical, tactical, kind of thing. Define those. What does it mean to be strong? What does it mean to be confident? What does it mean to be capable? And I mean that. What does it mean in your life to have those things? What does that actually look like? How does that strong, confident, capable version of you show up to all the different areas of your life? This is you, mom. This is you, dad. How does that person show up? And if it's not the way you're showing up right now, what's the gap? What is the gap and which one needs to happen first? Like, what is the biggest constraint for you now? Let's fix that one first. Let's go right there first. And let's start fixing this. It's my physical health. Cool. Let's focus on it and actually get it dialed. Right? I don't have good communication skills and I'm not confident in myself. Cool. Let's unpack. Why are you not confident? Where did that come from? How do we need to change that story so that you're telling yourself a different story of who you are? Capable at what? Mm-hmm. Capable at what? Because you can only be capable at a certain. I am a really capable human being. I know that. Also, if my truck was to break down on the side of the road, guess what? I am not capable of fixing it. I'm not. I need to call somebody else that's better at that. That's okay. I'm capable. I'm not capable. Like, that's it. I'm, on a basketball court, you put me out and give me a chance to shoot 100, 3-pointers. I'm going to knock down a bigger percentage than the majority of the population. I am very capable. I am a capable shooter. You bet. You put me in a batter's box and I got somebody throwing me fastballs. I have zero confidence that I am capable of hitting anything. Like, I have zero confidence in that. You're only going to be capable at so much. So when you say capable at what? What are the things you have to be capable at? This goes back to those skills we talked about earlier. What are the things you have to be capable at? And what are the things you want to be capable at? Now, shift it to our young people. Guess what? Young people are people, right? Like us. So this isn't different. What does strong, confident, and capable mean? for that young person. What does that mean? How do they have to show up? What do they need to be capable at? Because everybody needs to. What do they want to be capable at? Where is the lack of confidence? Where are they confident? Let's discuss those. Let's define those. Where are they really, really strong? Where are they not strong, but they need to be according to them or according to you? And then what's the gap? How do we start to systematically bridge that gap and be patient enough while we systematically bridge that gap? Because this is another thing we see too. Parents, even if they start to get over this hump and they realize it, and they're like, all right, cool. So I'm going to start homeschool, or I'm going to go to an Apogee school, or I'm going to, well, okay, cool. My child's been in an Apogee school for 2 weeks, man, and they're not, reading chapter books, and they're not, it's like, holy shit, like, dude, you suck so bad at patience. Like, we suck so bad. And we put time frames that are just stupid. And they're like, oh, so I guess we just have to go back to where they're going to hate their life. But at least everybody else hates their life the same. So for me, it's those things, man. It is mom and dad, you being those things first. And then let's define what those things mean for all of us.
Dude, so good.
That's the game.
Yeah.
It's always the game.
So good, man. What I'm reminded of as you say that is I'm thinking back to a story that you told us that you witnessed on your farm, where a little young ninja fought a rooster.
Oh man.
And how the adversity that played, the environment that played, like, you saw the confidence, the capability come out of that. Can you tell us that story real quick, bro?
Yeah, man. I mean, I hear straight up screaming out here. Roosters are mean, and anybody that's got a farm, can see roosters can be really freaking mean, and they're kind of big, and they're a little scary, and they're sharp. That's why roosters, people will have the roosters fight each other, and like that's the thing. Like, we'll have it all the time, and people hear. You might even hear it if you listen. You might. I don't hear it anymore because I'm so used to it. But where I'm recording this right now, right? Like I've got. It's this weird part of the basement where the farm. Where the chickens are on the farm. And so it's like, I had to pull my shades down in here, but like I see chickens, like that's all I see out here, right? I see chickens, I see roosters running around. I've watched a chicken drop dead while I've been on a call, and I actually yelled it out on a call. I'm like, a chicken just died. Like I'm on a podcast.
That's great.
Yeah. And so like, I'll see all that, but I'll hear them all the dang time. So I hear screaming, and I'm like, whoa, and I know it's not the roosters. Like I hear screaming, and I recognized immediately that it was my son. My son is not that much bigger than he's very small. He's very small. He was super proud yesterday. He comes running up. He's like, dude, I am 52 pounds now.
Nice.
Like I'm over. And he's 9. Like he's not big. Like he's a small dude. And so I was like, so like, good for you. So this is a year ago, maybe 2 years ago. We've already established that I can't keep track of time, and I have no idea. So it's somewhere a year or two ago. And I hear this screaming, man. And so I can get from where I am right here to where the chickens are in 5 seconds. And so I hear the screaming, dude, and I go run out there, and my son is in a fight with one of the roosters that is coming at him full claws. I learned later, like it had waited until he had turned his back on it, and it had jumped on my son's back and raked him with its claws. Like it jacked. I mean, he's got legit cuts all down his back. And so it attacks him, and he turns around, and he's just like, ow, and then it starts coming up and jumping into his face and jumping in. So he's screaming and he's crying because he's scared, but he's fighting. Like he's literally in a fight. And he just starts fighting it, and he threw some punches, and I see him start throwing kicks. He got it to back up, but it's still jumping at him, and he's literally throwing side kicks, dude. And he's just throwing, and he's like, you don't get to do this. And he's just like going at it, right? And there's this dad thing in me where I'm like, I want to run over, and I am going to kill this rooster right now. Yeah. It is dying right now. I want my son to watch me just snap the life out of this. But I run around, and I'm almost ashamed, but I'm also not. I'm like, oh, okay, he's getting, and I took my phone out and actually snapped a snapshot of it because
Oh,
I'm
really?
like, I want to see. I have a
Picture of it.
picture,
Wow.
where he's just like, he's throwing his kick and this rooster's like up like this and he's kicking to the
That's
rooster.
awesome.
But he wasn't in true danger. I was there and he needed to fight that. He needed to have that battle.
Yeah.
He needed that. Of course, that sucks to watch my son get attacked and be really scared and he's bleeding. Of course, that sucks. Also, he was going to be fine and I wasn't going to let anything more happen.
Yeah.
And now he had that, hell yeah, I fought back.
Mm-hmm.
Like I fought back. Something came at me and I fought back. And I literally, it's so funny that you asked me about this because I heard yesterday, I heard this from the office. I heard him go out there to go check for eggs because we have a bunch of egg eating chickens right now. The bastards are like, they're laying eggs and they're eating them. So we're not getting, so we're having to go check more often. And he goes out there and I heard him say, Jack, which is the name of that rooster, Jack, you don't want a piece of this. And I was just like, hell yeah, boy.
That's right.
Yeah, that's it. Like, that's it. He goes out there with confidence and he's like, I'm going to go check. And Jack, you don't want a piece of this because he's always worried that Jack's going to come at him. But he's just like, dude, I'm ready. I'm ready because I know I can handle it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Bro, that's so awesome, man. Such a great story. It's it's so funny, man, that most guys, dads, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm thinking of myself as a dad in that perspective, watching Ethan go through that. And dude, that you would be quick to jump into that moment and intercede, right?
Yep.
But that fact that you were patient. You held back just a little bit, just enough to be able to observe and take in what was actually happening and what could come out of it. And you can't manufacture the confidence that he now exudes and he can go in, that right there was worth that adversity and that tense moment. And all, like, that's what I think people don't realize, man.
You bet. Yeah. You bet. Yeah. And this is so, and and again, thank you for even bringing this up because I want to make sure people understand too. This is also a product of, I have jumped in way too soon for way too many things, way too many times.
Making a mistake. Yep.
I've made those mistakes. And then I've gone back and gone, okay, I probably should have waited a little and backed up and let them have the experience of, right? And then I make the mistake again. I'm like, shit, okay, I should have backed up and let them have it. And this for any of for my girls, for them, for what, I should have waited a little bit. And it's those kinds of things over and over and over and over and over again for years and years and years that when you allow yourself to reflect, you allow yourself to question, you question your decisions, you wrestle with it, you ask yourself more questions. It's that same cycle we were talking about earlier. Your decision-making process gets faster. That part is great. And because you're continuously reflecting, again, scientific method, the decision-making process gets better. Yeah. You start getting faster and you're more accurate on making a decision that you would deem as the one you actually wanted to make. Yeah. It's that process over and over and over. Your mental reflexes become better. But when you're not actually reflecting, you're not actually actively making these decisions, you're not challenging your reactions. Yeah. When you're not doing that, you can't trust that as well. People, trust your instincts. I don't trust everybody's instincts. I trust mine. I trust certain people's. I don't trust everybody's. Your instincts will never lie. Bullshit. Really? There's a lot of baby mamas that their instincts were, this is the guy, this is the one, that didn't work out. How's that going? Your instincts are not always correct, but you can train them to get pretty good. Yeah. You just have to be intentional about it.
Yeah, that reflection, that evaluation of that, man, and most people don't do that. They don't do that.
It's huge, man. Yeah. Shout out to Savan Matosian. Savan was one of the guys he was the main videographer for CrossFit, and was one of the CrossFit coaches like early on in the day, and went on. He was a huge reason that they were as successful as they were, and people either love Savan or they hate him. Because he is just about as brutal and open, he's about as brutal with his words as anybody I know. He's so cool, man. He's so smart, and people either really like him or they freaking hate and he does not care either way. So I'm a fan. But I remember Savon talking about, this was years ago when I was talking to him, and this is part of what made me remember I need to reflect on this. He's like, dude, your kid falls down. They fall down. He's using the metaphor, but they fall down on their face. They're out running around. They fall flat on their face. People want to go pick them up and go, are you okay? He said, your job at that moment is to stop, put your back to them, and just survey and go, cool, man, are there any bears? This is how he framed it. He's like, are there any bears coming that I've got to protect them because they're not going to see the bear coming?
Yeah.
Because if there's nothing big coming like that, that's my job right now, is to protect that, so that I can also give that little person the honor of dusting themselves off and getting up and showing themselves that they're okay. I protect the big stuff and I let them fight through that little stuff so that they can get that. Like, he said that to me years ago. And that's something that's always been, that I've been reflecting on and trying to hone. So again, screwed it up a bunch. I'm thankful it went down the way it did with the rooster.
Yeah, that's good, man. And that's a good analogy too. That's a powerful one.
I love it.
Yeah. Dude, so full circle with Loudon.
Yeah.
You're talking about how we as parents have to exude the strength, the capability, the confidence as well, and be on our own educational journeys. We have to meet our own levels of adversity. And there's something that you just had an experience with. 10 rounds, 5 minutes each. And you're still growing and educating yourself in a martial art, or in boxing, and in this particular sense. Can you tell us that story, bro? Because that was awesome.
Yeah, man, it was great. So I'm a huge fan of coaches holding standards, and so that's a big part of the reason we go to American Top Team out here, and they're a phenomenal team, phenomenal coaches. My son is in there multiple times a week for so many things. And we've just gotten to the point where I can make it out to his practices on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And so now there's a time block that's in there where they were also doing an adult boxing class. And I got a little bit of a background as far as that stuff, but it's just, that hasn't been the focus and the priority. But now just time wise, it works, man. So I'm in there and I'm working. And what I love too is the coach is over there, and Coach Steve, shout out to him, former UFC guy and just phenomenal owner and operator of this. He's like, hey man, like, I see that you've got this background. Like, I see that you got some skills, but I want everybody to earn their way. I'm like, yes, dude, I want to earn 100%. I agree with that. Absolutely. I do not want any special favors on this at all. Make me earn it like everybody else. I love that. Yeah. So then part of this process of leveling up to either your next belt or your next shirt color, which is, same thing as the belt. Yeah. They're like, look, man, this is part of the leveling up thing. You're going to be invited because you are, and this is to everybody that's being invited to level up. You're being invited because we think you're capable of this, but here's what the final test is. The final grading thing is you're going 10 5-minute rounds. You're going to have a minute, rest in between, but you're just going back to back, new person, 10 rounds. Here you go. And he came to me and he's like, hey man, I know you're one of the older guys. Like, I feel like you're capable of this too. Like, do you want to? I'm like, there's no way in hell you give me the next color shirt without me going through that. I don't care that these other guys are 20 and they're 22 and there's no way in hell I am not earning that. Yeah. No way. And my only request is, can my family be there? Can they be there to watch? Can they be on the sidelines and watch the whole thing? I want my boy to see it. I want my girls to see it too. But I want my boy to see that. I want my boy to see that I will not allow something to be handed to me, and that I know I'm going to be tired, and I'm just going to start at some point getting my. I mean, still got a little bit of the shiner going on here, a little, and I'll tell you, by round 5 or 6, I was toast. Yeah. I was toast. The gas tank is not. It's fine. It's good. It's not what it used to be, and that's fine. Yeah. I was toast, man, and I went with I remember hitting a wall right around round 5 or 6. And that's when another one of the pros came in, who was one of the coaches. And I think out of the 10 rounds, 4 of the rounds were against pro fighters. And 3 of those came round 5 and after.
Oh,
Um,
man.
so I just took an ass whooping, and that's fine. I'm all right with that, man. It's okay.
Yeah.
Because I didn't care about that. I cared that he saw that I was going to not quit, and I was smiling my ass off the whole time.
Nice.
I wanted him to see that mentality. That was it. And then they were gracious enough to also say, they had a little pity on the old man, and they're like, here, man, get your boy in there too. That mattered
Yeah.
to me. It was nice because I got a little bit of a break, sort of, but he whooped my ass too for that 5 minutes, right? Because I just told him, I'm like, hey, man, I'm going to get down my knees so we're the same height. Throw. Just go.
Yeah.
It's okay. Like, throw. You're not going to hurt me. You're going to be okay. Throw. I want you to get used to throwing, and like, what does it mean to actually make contact? I'm going to punch you a little bit, but I want you to throw down. So that to me was super, super special to have him be a part of that. That was the hardest he's ever gotten to throw on somebody
Nice.
because he could go full blast and it was okay. And he got to see dad never quit through that whole thing. Dude, best night in a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a phenomenal experience, man. I love it. I love that for you. I love that you got to experience that. That's awesome, bro.
So good.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, and that Loudon got to get in there with you, you know, and just
100%.
bro. And he looked so he was focused, bro, on that picture or that video I saw that Heather put up. Yeah.
Bro,
Was,
he was I mean, he didn't hold back. And it was, it took him a minute to be like, is it okay if I really throw? And he talks me once and I'm like, good shot. And he's like, okay, cool. And then he owned it. And he was like, all right, let's go. He's throwing down on Pops, man.
That's
But
awesome.
but it was cool. He's like, I could tell when you fought Coach Chris, I could tell you were tired, huh? I'm like, oh, dude, I hit a wall. I came back out later and had a little more energy in rounds like 8, 9. But dude, but I didn't stop.
Yeah.
That's what's important. He's like, yep, you got to see it. There's no hypocrisy from dad. That's all I want.
Yeah. That's awesome, bro. I love it.
Yeah, it's cool, man. So fun.
Dude, so Apogee Strong Movement, man.
Yeah, man.
What are you working on now? What is this whole Apogee Strong Movement about? If you can tell everybody, I'm a part of it. I know I'm wearing the t-shirt and everything. He's wearing the hat, but let's tell them about what this is, man. And let them know what you're actually working on, what you're building right now.
Yeah. And it's not a me, it's a we.
Yeah.
And you're a huge part of that, man. So not only are you, you are a part of the leadership within this too. And so I want to make sure everybody knows that very clearly. Like, you have impacted so many lives here, and that, we talk about this being leadership on purpose. Leaders build more leaders, period. Like, leaders build more. And I've told you this, I've told everybody this. I don't care if at some point Matt needs to drop off the face of the earth in terms of everybody knowing his face or who he is, or, and I say everybody, meaning people, anybody in general. I don't care if anybody knows me from anybody else, as long as you guys do. And as long as I'm always pouring into you, I want everybody else to be the public face of this and just start shifting culture. That's it. I can fade into the background and just have the relationships with, the leaders that we have here. I'm good, man. I'm good. Nothing there. But that's what we are doing, is we are building sovereign humans who are leading well inside their family first, which starts inside the 6 inches between their ears, starts there, then to their family. And if somebody just stops there, dude, that's a win. That's a win. I have changed my perspective. I feel good. I am leading myself well in all the ways that we've been discussing. And now I'm also leading my family. And then hell, if I get there and I want to go out, step outside of that, lead my community, lead other people, awesome. That's it. That's how we shift things. So whatever level you want, like, that's it. That is the goal of what we are doing. So we've put together, as many verticals as we can to try to do that the best we can. And again, that doesn't come without the bat. Well, I thought you guys were just building schools, but now you're talking about, dads. We're talking about education for the whole family. Well, dude, I thought you guys were just pouring into dads, but now you've got this woman's thing. We want to pour into the moms too. What about the teenagers? I thought that's we got the teenagers in there too. We've got the physical campuses. All of it works together. It's not this crazy thing where we're selling sandwiches and Ford trucks and boomerangs. Like, it's all the same damn thing. It is education for the entire family as best as we can provide it in terms of that environment that we were talking about, and so that's it. So what we're working on right now is every single one of these verticals that plays together. So, we got the men and all our classes of men, and pouring into these men, many of whom are dads, and providing mentors, providing a roadmap for them to wrestle with, to make decisions about, to come back and wrestle with. It is literally this, it's a roadmap that really goes in a circle, because it is something that you can just continuously go through that roadmap and touch most key meta areas throughout the year. And then you're being reaffirmed on, but also what is the thing that you need out of all of this too? And where do you go for that, right? It's the meta skills, and it's the figure out what you need next too. And hey, by the way, we're not the end all be all for everybody, but if your meta skill is over here, or the meta skills are here, if your me skill is here, cool. We probably have a mentor that we can also try to bring in and get you connected with, so that you get a little extra piece of what the next step looks like, right? And we're doing that for the men. We're doing that for the women. We're doing that for our teenage young men. We're doing that for our teenage young ladies. The challenges, the projects, the mentors, all those are different, but the general structure of it is the same. And then we've got families that are home educating, and they're going, okay, how does this whole family do this, where mom is going forward, dad's going forward? Maybe we are part of the mentorship programs, maybe we're not, but we want to grow together as a family. Cool, sounds good. There's elements of this that absolutely map over here, and there's other things that are different, but that's great. We got our physical campuses. We're helping men and women who are deciding to bring this sort of thing to their community. So we're helping them do that. And by the way, they get to connect to all of these other mentorship programs that we have. Like, that is it. Now, the hard part of all that, it costs money to run things. I'm not a money-driven individual, so this is one of my biggest things that I have to work through. I'm not driven by money at all. I'm not even in the top 10 paid people within our Apogee movement. And I'm the one that I guarantee obsesses about it more and works on it more, as it should be. But I'm not money-driven. But I do know money is needed to make the mission happen, right? And so, but I also know that can also be a sticking point. So there's like this game right now of playing like, cool, how do we raise money and use money through our foundations to scholarship people and scholarship them in the right fashion and the right people, so that they show up and they've also got skin in the game and they get in. So that's one of the biggest things that we're working on, especially considering we're working with the new administration on what it looks like from a federal level. And Apogee plays a big role on redefining what education means in this country anyways. That's the reality of it. And so we got a lot of conversations going around that. So that's the big overarching, but then every single vertical too. It's how do we make this better? Who needs to be here? Who are the coaches that need to step in to keep this thing not just going, but to make it get better?
Yeah.
I mean, how do we make it better? As time gets sucked away from, for various things, who do we have in place that, even though Matt's not in there, cool, that actually just got better and there's more support. How do we do that? How do we grow that? How do we scale that? How do we take care of everybody in the midst of that? So we're just scaling a business.
Yeah, but it's a very impactful one, man. And it's one that
it's a mission.
Yeah, it's a mission, man. And it's one that has grown, exponentially. So like it's growing, and it's growing, it's snowballing fast, man. And I see it. I love it. And I love the people involved. I love you and everybody that's, man, like it's been life-changing for me, for you listening, for you watching. I can tell you right away, man, like with all certainty that it's been a life-changing thing for me personally and my entire family. And because it is an educational path that you can decide to go on. It's never forced on you. It's something that you decide to go on, and you will grow from the experience, man.
Period. End of story. And the live events, which I didn't mention because we just haven't done many, but those are things that are also getting ramped up here too. Again, that experiential, like that's a big deal, and it's just solidified trust. Like, how cool is it that I get to run this mission, but in the process of running this mission, I literally now have redefined my circle, my personal circle.
Yeah.
Right. I am closer to the men in here, a handful of men in here, yourself included. I am like, that's my go-to circle. I'm closer to you guys than I am to, outside of my own family, as far as when it comes to like men, I'm closer to you guys than I am to freaking anybody else.
Yeah.
How cool is that?
Yeah.
Like, and that's just a byproduct of it all.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And when we have those live events and those shared experiences together, you know, the words I've always used on this, and I don't remember whose quote it is, but the quote is something around the concept of it is better to be trusted than to be loved. And I think that's an interesting thing to wrestle with, but I can literally look around and go, okay, I have a handful of men now in my life, again, yourself included, of men that I can honestly say, do I love them? Yes, I do. Almost even more importantly to me, I trust them. And that's just that's a freaking amazing byproduct of it all.
Yeah, man.
I mean, that's really what it is. It's this byproduct, you know, and you and I can, and you and I can name the other guys that kind of fall into this category for us too, that we're on this journey with. And that's a freaking special thing, man.
Yeah, dude, it is. It's life-changing, man. And it's something that, and I don't take lightly, man. I love that. I respect that trust that you've instilled in all of us as well, man. And likewise, you know, it's the same, man. It's the same, brother. Dude, so where can we go? Where can the people go to find Apogee? What's the sites? What's the socials and all that?
Yeah, man. So apogeestrong.com will continue to be the place. We'll update it with all of our foundation stuff. And that's a constant part of the business of like having to redo and update and prioritize and all. But apogeestrong.com is always going to be the place to go. And then at Apogee Program, on Instagram right now, I'm going out and meet with Alex and Layla again in a couple of weeks. We may take a look at some other platforms, may not. That's not the just trying to figure out how to get the word out there well.
Yeah.
But right now, Instagram is the place to go. And there's been no strategy other than talk a lot about what we're doing and show everybody what we're doing. Yeah. So at some point, there's going to be a strategy around that too, which we're getting to that, which is cool. It's cool that all this has really grown organically. It really is. But we'll step it up over there too. So at Apogee Program on IG.
Cool, man. Yeah. Brother, well, dude, I could talk to you for another hour, bro. But easy. I think the time just slipped by. But we'll definitely do another one, man, and we'll get another one in here on the books, bro. But dude, I appreciate you, man. Thank you for just everything that you do, for taking on this mission, and for just being a leader, man, amongst men, and not someone that I know how you are. Like, you're humble in that approach. Like, you lead, but you don't look for it. You just you land in it, and people, you know, and you inspire people, man. You've changed thousands of lives, and I want you to know that, and you're going to keep impacting thousands more as you keep going on this, man. So I'm absolutely honored and privileged to be a part of this with you. And I just look forward to seeing our growth, man, as we keep going throughout this journey. But also just all the lives we're going to impact as we go, man. And just, yeah, dude, just see this catapult to the freaking moon. You know what I mean?
Best, man. Honor's my own. Thank you for that.
I love you, brother.
Love you too, man.
1, 2, 3 actions I didn't meet. 4, 5, 6 fear and silence begin to mix. 7, 8, 9 the thought of being emotionless started taking over my mind.